All right. This one, there you go. Call to order the city council for the city of Petoskey for July 1st, 2024. I ask that you rise with me for the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reminder, everybody keep your phones or silence them. I heard one go off just now. Okay. We'll have Sarah Beck, our clerk, call roll.
Demore, present. Shields.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Walker. Present. Murphy.
Present. We have a quorum. Next is the proclamation. You guys want to stand?
Oh.
Why don't you stand up? It's pretty special, I think. What happened? Whereas the city of Petoskey recognized Dorothy Lovelace for her vision in 1934 to found the Petoskey Garden Club. And whereas the city of Petoskey is most grateful to the Garden Club, Area Garden Club of Petoskey, for beautifying our community for the last 90 years. And whereas the Petoskey Area Garden Club has beautified our community by creating perennial beds, planters, Mitchell Bridge, hanging baskets, as well as the Monarch Way station on the river. And whereas the Petoskey Area Garden Club donated and has covered the maintenance of the Pennsylvania Park gazebo. And whereas the Petoskey Area Garden Club has created and maintained a menagerie of vibrant, colorful beds that create a sense of welcome, happiness, calmness, but for those that live in, not just those that live here, but also for our visitors alike. The Petoskey Area Garden Club has endeavored to create a children's garden in Arlington Park. And whereas the children's garden will be named Kittenden Garden as an honor to the Odawa descendants, and whereas Kittenden in Odawa means children. Whereas the garden will encourage children to explore, climb, plant, play, and learn through exploration. Now, therefore, I, John Murphy, Mayor of Petoskey, do hereby proclaim that Petoskey has enjoyed and is forever grateful to the many members of the Petoskey Area Garden Club for their continued efforts to make Petoskey a beautiful community through flowers. It's dated today, so thank you. We'd like to give you this plaque. If you guys want to come up and get a picture of you guys with your plaque.
Get out of the way.
I'll go down.
Who's gonna take it? Do you want me to?
Yeah.
You're gonna take it? Oh, wait.
I guess I'll just go.
I really remember.
I'll just photobomb it.
Are you gonna get it done or not? Right, ready, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much for what you guys do.
Yes.
For you.
We had an outstanding, what would you call it, a gala at the Bayview Country Club last Monday. And Shane was there, I was there, Tina was there. It was Brian. No, but it was a great event. I know you raised a lot of money towards the children's garden. So keep up the good work, and we're looking forward to working with you in the future. There's also, I thought I should introduce briefly. Could you two stand? Back in 1973, the city council was discussing turning Pennsylvania Park into a parking lot. And if it wasn't for Barbara Waters, I always do this, Barbara Waters standing up and saying this can't happen, started a petition. It was on the ballot in November of '73, and it passed, and that the city council can no longer sell pieces of parks or lease or sell or give any of the parks that we have without a vote of the public. So thank you to your mother and to your mother-in-law for what they have done to save Pennsylvania Park in '73. And I thought I'd introduce them to you. They're here. They live up in northern Michigan, and she passed away about 10 years ago.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
And your father passed away about a year ago. Yeah,
Indeed.
Dr. Waters.
She had, if I could just say,
Sure.
she was involved with the garden club and caught wind of this thing about going to take the park, make it into a parking lot, and started attending meetings like this and standing up just on behalf of the citizens. And then Andy Can, our mayor, convinced her to run for mayor.
Okay.
But the really big deal was they rewrote that part of the charter, because it did require a simple majority of the 5 people.
Right.
They rewrote it to be a 3/4.
Right.
So it could be all the parks.
Right.
They really.
She did.
For sure.
That November, she also got elected as our first female mayor. It's back here on the bottom.
Right.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That being said, let's get down to business. And it's a presentation to hear an introduction and update from Peyton Hines, President of Northern Lake Economic Alliance.
Thank you very much.
Yours.
Good evening. Give them just a moment to get things set up, but thank you so much for the opportunity to be here this evening. I've been looking forward to an opportunity to meet all of you, and I look forward to more conversation following this meeting, and look forward to working with you in the years ahead. But again, I'm Peyton Hines, the new president of Northern Lakes Economic Alliance. I started just in January, so I'm a very new face to the organization. A little bit of background on myself. So I've spent my career working in economic and community development. Most recently served as the Director of Policy and Strategic Initiatives with the Michigan Office of Rural Prosperity. And before that, worked with a nonprofit leading Michigan operations, where we did consulting work around development policies, and tackling challenging, complex redevelopment issues. So my background is in policy and urban and regional planning. I wanted to not just take the opportunity to introduce myself, but also to kind of reintroduce Northern Lakes Economic Alliance, and talk about the current services that we provide, and also give you an update on where we're at with a strategic planning process right now for the organization, and what that means for us in the years ahead. And lastly, give you a little bit of an update on some of the work that we've been doing in Emmett County and Petoskey, and leave some time for questions if you have them. So I'll get started here. My clicker is working. There we go. So this year is an exciting year to start with the organization. It's our 40th anniversary. And with that, we decided to kick off a comprehensive strategic planning process, which I'll share a little bit more about. But those of you less familiar with NLEA, our mission is to really advance the economy, and do that by working with communities and businesses, helping them to create and retain family-sustaining jobs in our 4-county service area, which includes Antrim, Charlevoix, Emmett, and Sheboygan counties. This is our current staff, so our full-time staff, and two of them have joined me this evening. Jessica and Chris are here, both have and continue to do work in Emmett County and in Petoskey. But this is our full-time staff. We also have contractors and interns who support our various projects throughout the year. Our current core focus areas for the organization are in business retention and growth, and infrastructure and community development. And then we have a variety of special initiatives that will pop up based on needs and what we're hearing from businesses. So most recently, we in the last 2 years, launched our Choose the North campaign, which is really focused on talent attraction. And that was in response to what we were hearing from communities and businesses, and not being able to bring on the talent that they need, the labor force that they need to succeed and to grow. We provide a variety of economic development services within these core focus areas, and that ranges from providing grant application and administration support. So it might be helping a community or a business secure a particular type of grant to advance their economic development goals or their goals as a business. And many times that might be expansion of an existing business. We provide economic development trainings. We support research and planning around economic development, do a lot in the infrastructure and site readiness space, and that's one that we want to really expand upon in the years ahead, and spend a lot of time connecting directly with businesses and helping them troubleshoot specific challenges that they may be addressing. And that type of work can really take a lot of different forms. If we're not providing that direct service to the business, if we're not able to respond to their needs, we know of another partner organization, either at the state level, federal level, or local level, that can support those businesses with their needs. So it's really all about connecting them to the resources that they need. As I mentioned, we're going through a strategic planning process. This is the first time the organization has done a comprehensive strategic planning process in its 40-year history. So it's a big deal for us. And we're developing a plan that will map out our strategic direction for the next 3-year period. And then the idea is it's not just a one and done type of planning exercise, but we develop a 3-year plan. In 2 years, we go back through a planning process and make sure that our goals are still in line, that we're planning for the future, and we update that plan in the years ahead. So it's all about remaining current with the most critical needs of our businesses and communities in the economic development space. So we're going through that process right now. It's about a 5 to 6 month process, and that has included community feedback sessions. We're doing direct one-on-one interviews with stakeholders. We did an early impression survey. We'll be doing a more significant surveying effort in the coming weeks, and have that go out for several months so that we can really cast a wide net and get more feedback throughout this process. But the goal is to have this final plan developed and approved by our board of directors by the end of the year so that we can kick off implementation in 25. So just a little bit of an update on our work in Emmett County and in Petoskey specifically. And then, as I mentioned, would love to respond to any questions you may have and have the team here behind me to answer questions that I may not be able to go into great detail on. Our 5-year impacts across Emmett County have included supporting the retention and creation of over 1,300 jobs, and securing direct public and private investment, just over 24 million. And again, that's direct investment. It doesn't capture some of those positive spillover effects of bringing in that new public and private investment. And this is all information that we regularly track in our Salesforce project management space. So really trying to measure the impacts, and I'm sure we'll identify new ways that we continue to measure those impacts through our strategic planning process. On the business retention and growth side, for some of our work that we've been doing in the area, conducting what we call retention visits. This is really a core practice of any economic development organization, and that is conducting more formal visits to businesses and spending time with them and really understanding where they're currently at, what their needs are, and how we can best respond to those needs. And that may turn into, we end up helping them write a grant to secure additional funding to purchase equipment or to expand their facility. We recently, one example is kind of in response to those retention visits was helping an Emmett County-based business secure a USDA grant of about $300,000 that allowed them to improve upon their existing equipment and purchase new equipment. We worked with Networks Northwest and a number of other economic development organizations across northern Michigan in conducting a survey with outdoor recreation type businesses to understand what their needs are and their growth projections. And that helped inform a northern Michigan-based outdoor recreation industry report. We also do a lot in providing just general education to our businesses and helping to gather data to support their business case or support their expansion case. On the community and public sector side, some of the recent supports that we've provided include our ongoing support to the county Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, providing community education around economic development, monitoring site opportunities. And on the project support side, we have supported grant applications, grant administration around specific projects, and Chris is currently supporting and exploring an economic development policy. And with all of you, I think he's reached out to most of you or all of you at this point to begin that process. I thought I had one more slide, but I guess that was the end. Again, on any of those projects, we're happy to go into greater detail, elaborate on anything.
Questions, Mr. Moore?
I don't want to put you on the spot, so if this requires research, that's fine. So when I look at this, and you're a single organization representing Antrim, Charlevoix, Sheboygan, and Emmett, and many communities within, I would expect. My question is, some of those locations have common needs and desires for incoming whatever. Do you folks have like a conflict of interest policy? How do you deal with that when there's something presented to you that could be a benefit, let's say, to Charlevoix and Emmett County, and there's a selection process? I'm just curious how you deal with that.
Let me try and ask a kind of clarifying question in response. Do you mean how do we determine who we might work with?
How do you determine where to direct opportunities where there's interest in more than one community that you represent?
Oh, I see. So for example, if a developer came to us and was interested in developing, we do not direct businesses or developers to a certain community. It's a common, as part of our economic developers code of ethics, that you don't direct to specific places. We will respond to the questions about specific places and connect, but we will not tell them you should go here, you should go there.
Is that code of ethics unique to NLEA or broader than that?
Broader than that.
I'd love to see that.
Sure. It's with the International Economic Developers Association.
Okay.
So I, as a certified economic developer, am responsible for following that economic development code of ethics.
If you wouldn't mind providing that to Shane, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Shields?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Payne. I look forward to getting more engaged in the surveys. I know there was one that came away this spring, the earlier one you mentioned. I don't think I participated, so I want to get engaged. I am very interested and glad that you are in our community. So just one curiosity question. Nationally, I've read about a lot of retirements happen. So the impact of, I think the term silver tsunami I've heard of retiring and impacting small businesses. Is that something that you're aware of as an impact in Northern Michigan in our region?
Absolutely. Succession planning is going to be absolutely critical. Not just in Northern Michigan, but I think across the country. But yes, you are spot on. That is a definite need and something that we're looking at and thinking about how can we support additional education around succession planning. So we're talking with some of our partner organizations about how we can do that, but that is absolutely a need.
Great. I think that's as we think about the future sustainability of this community.
Yes.
I think about that succession planning. That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Peyton. I welcome you on board as the newest director of NLEA. What an honor and a privilege to meet with you and obviously be working with you into the future. I do have a couple of kind of looking into the future in terms of economic development here in the city of Petoskey. Obviously, like most counties in Northern Michigan and the 3 counties that you work in, we're a tourist-based economy, and the loss of our bike path due to a climate-related high water levels back in 2020 and 2021 has resulted in kind of a standstill, and it's going to be a really heavy lift for us to be able to restore that bike path to continue to allow bike transportation and that kind of economic development that our bike paths bring to our region. So I'm hopeful that Northern Lakes Economic Alliance will be able to help us in that very heavy lift of both public and private partnerships to restore that bike path. When I think about other kinds of economic development, as a county employee, I work for Emmett County Department of Public Works and Emmett County Recycling, and we're focusing a lot on climate resiliency and the materials management planning process over the course of the next 5 years. All 83 counties in Michigan are going to have to revise what we previously called their solid waste planning process, and now we call it sustainable materials management process. So Emmett is definitely one of the leaders in that, but the really heavy lift for our other 3 surrounding rural communities is significant. Antrim, Charlevoix, Sheboygan counties are also, in need of that kind of planning, and we hope to be able to create partnerships where we're really leaning in and working on each other's strengths. And that includes in rural development and tourist-based economy, the agricultural sector as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would be hopeful that we would be able to be working on the kind of the trifecta of the biggest economic development issues, which housing obviously is something you probably hear a lot about.
Yes.
Living wage campaigns, public transportation, and of course, childcare and elder care. That's actually 5 topics, not 3, but obviously big issues for our community. And I'm hopeful that Northern Lakes Economic Alliance will be able to be a real galvanizing entity in helping us with these really heavy lifts that exist not only in the city of Petoskey and in Emmett County, but a 4-county area. So welcome on board.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other?
I have to speak. Enough was said. I'm glad we've had a chance to get to know each other a little bit. Of course, we have a date coming up, and Jessica and Shane, the work that you've done together already to get Jessica's help in helping us administer grants is like one small step, I suppose, but it's great to see we're collaborating and you're working with us, and we're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you for that.
I ask a question?
Please.
Peyton, I'm just curious, and I've always been interested in this because there's so many ways to deal with it and address it. But strategic planning, are you and your board doing that in-house, or are you using a facilitator to assist you through that process?
Thank you. Brought on an outside facilitator. We felt that was important to have someone from outside the organization leading those conversations and recording the information that's gathered. So we're working with an organization called Lake Superior Community Partnership. They have background in strategic planning and have also served as both a chamber of commerce and an economic development organization. So they really understand the economic development space on top of having the expertise in strategic planning. So we felt like that was a very appropriate fit. And they're from outside the area, which we also thought would be
Sure.
important to the process.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you also. We look forward to working with you in the future, and I'm sure I have a meeting coming up. Thank you for what you did, great presentation, and thank you for answering.
Thank you very much.
Have a great
Appreciate
evening.
the opportunity. Thank you.
Next is the consent agenda, and it's the June 3rd, 2024 regular session city council meeting minutes, as well as acknowledge the receipt of certain administrative transactions that have occurred since June 3rd, 2023. I take it to council for possible motion or adoptions or changes. Ms. Walker,
I'd be happy to make a motion here.
Support.
a motion from Ms. Walker, second from Ms. Demore. Any discussion or question, council? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Walker, yes. Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Next is public comment. This is your opportunity to step to the mic, give us your full name, full address, and you'll have 3 minutes to address council. If it's something that's on the agenda coming up, I ask that you hold it. Come on up.
Is Jen Schneider, and address is 713 Grove Street, Petoskey. And I am currently the president of the Petoskey Area Garden Club. And I wanted to, first of all, thank you for the proclamation and the citation, and for Ms. Demore and Mr. Murphy and Mr. Horn coming to our gala. We really appreciated that moral support there, and I hope you had a good time. And in this whole, in celebrating the 90th, we've been looking at our history, and we have sort of been, meeting these men and women, on paper and seeing their photographs and stuff and learning about them. And we would like to, the Garden Club would really like to partner with the city to somehow recognize and memorialize Barbara Waters' effect on the city. If it hadn't been for her leadership, we might not have Pennsylvania Park. And to me, Pennsylvania Park is like the social and, it's the soul, the center of our city. And so we would just like to suggest that perhaps in the near future, we could kind of collaborate on that and come up with something that would be a token of appreciation to her, and also to tell that wonderful story. It's really inspiring. I know it was to me when I learned about that. I just thought these were incredible people to stand up and, not just plant flowers, but to make sure the place for the flower beds and the trees would still be there for future generations. I think that's really important. So it's just a request, to comment. I'm hopeful that we can do something like that. So thank you.
I know it's come up before, and get with city manager, we'll get with Parks and Rec director and the family, and we'll see what we can do.
I think that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to add that I fully support this idea. I was really pleased that at the celebration, the mayor talked about this effort that Mayor Waters, well, she was then before Mayor Waters undertook. And really Pennsylvania Park's the heart of Petoskey. And I think it'd be incredible to somehow recognize her, as you say, in conjunction with Parks and Recreation, because we would have a lot of other parks that could be parking lots by now without her efforts and the efforts of the Garden Club. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Walker.
Yeah, I'm convinced that Joni Mitchell's Paved Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot actually came out in 1973, and it might be dedicated to Barbara.
Okay. Switch to speak to council. And then I'll go to city manager update and I turn it over to city manager Shane Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to, this being the first meeting of our month, I wanted to recognize some staff with birthdays and work anniversaries for the month of July. So in July was a fairly light birthday month for our staff, but Jason Fate, our city engineer, celebrates a birthday in a few days. Work anniversaries for the month of July, a number of those. Mike Robbins, Public Works Director, celebrates 35 years with the city later this month. Mike Parker, one of our lieutenants in public safety, 26 years. Rob Eichler, Electric Department, 24 years. Lisa Denoyer, Planning and Zoning, 20 years. Pat McGinnis, the Electric Department, 12 years. Eric Kressel, Electric Department, 12 years as well. Robert Kibbe, Electric Department, 3 years. Wyatt Putman also celebrates 3 years in the Electric Department. And then Nick Hunter, celebrating his first year anniversary with the city in Parks and Rec this month as well. I'm pleased to report that our projects that we started in April, kind of anticipating this time when all of our visitors arrive, have pretty much completed. All of our street projects, Bayview Avenue, that was a reconstruct, as we all know, with new water and sewer and sidewalks. That project is complete. Winter Park Lane, Rose Street, Balsam Avenue resurfacing, all complete. We're just watching the grass grow at this point, which is outstanding. East Mitchell Street, resurfacing on Division Street to the city limits, and then the county took it from the city limits to Division Road. Has been completed as well. We are actually this evening finishing up some striping on the city portion. The county finished their portion. I believe it was Thursday or Friday of last week with striping. So that road is in really good shape as well currently. Sunset Park is completed as well. If you've not had a chance to walk through there, I would certainly encourage you to do so. It's a wonderful, I drove by Sunday and it just got a nice smile. Typically, since I've been here anyway, you see a lot of cars parked there, enjoying the wonderful views, but you didn't see a lot of people out milling around. And I saw a lot of folks just walking along the pathway, kind of looking at the view area that we created, and it's just wonderful to see people enjoying that opportunity to really get out and explore. And then, Winter Sports Park upgrades have also been completed. A new roof at the lodge and new doors and windows as well. So that was a well-needed upgrade. Completed just in time for our kids camp with about 50 campers for this summer. So we're excited for that project to be completed. Just this morning, Sarah had the opportunity to swear in our newest public safety officer, Adam Klimsma. Just to give you a little bit of background for him. I did that. My apologies. Adam also graduated from Lake Superior State University. It's probably hard to see it close up, but Adam actually was a cadet for our public safety department last summer. Adam completed the LSSU Academy, also earned not only his MCOL certification, but his bachelor's degree and as well. Adam served as the Academy's cadet lieutenant and earned an earned an award for outstanding leadership. He also earned an outstanding performance award from the Michigan Commission on Law Enforcement, which is MCOLS. This award was presented for his exemplary demonstration of knowledge, skills, and abilities required of an effective police officer during the basic training program. So we're pleased to have Adam join our public safety department. And again, with his swearing in this morning, he's officially on board as a full-time public safety officer. So just as a reminder, we'll kind of throw this up. This is kind of our first year of kind of re-engaging the Bayfront with music. So I was able to attend, as well as Council Member Wagner last night. We initially had Eliza Thorpe scheduled for I think it was June 9th. And it was just being down here that particular day. It was overcast and very windy and very chilly. And so we decided to extend her out. And so she performed last night. It was very, if you've not heard Eliza, she has a very calm, soothing voice, and it was just nice to lay back and close your eyes and just take it all in. So it was a very nice concert that she provided. So the first and third Sunday evenings from 5 to 7 will be having concerts down on the Bayfront in the Promenade area. So we encourage folks to take advantage of that and really enjoy some wonderful music. I mentioned our campers. We have a full crew of summer camp kids that occupy the winter sports park for the summer. This is a picture of them. They recently went on an outing. I think this was maybe a rain date, but they had an outing at the Lyric Theater in Harbor Springs recently. So this was a nice photo op for them gathering together. So we have a great group of leaders that are providing effective leadership for the campers. So it's been a good opportunity for them, and actually they can open the windows and enjoy breeze through there now, which they couldn't do before. So they're really enjoying that opportunity. So I believe, and you all can correct me if I'm not correct on this, but I believe this is kind of classified as our busiest week probably of the summer, just with all the prep for the wonderful events that we're going to see celebrating our country's holiday on the 4th of July. Actually, it kicks off on July 3rd in Bay Harbor with their festivities. But for us, the 4th kind of kicks off with a parade. Grandpa Shorter's 4th of July parade starts at 6 o'clock. And then we have, actually, that's not correct. Live entertainment starts at 7:30. My apologies. Live entertainment down in the festival place starts at 6:30. Brian, can you remind me who's down there for
the music? Folks from Recovery Notes again for the 4th year in a row as volunteers and performing. And then the Third Degree closes out the night. I think all but one are Petoskey High grads and one from Charlevoix, and they're sensational.
Yeah, great. So that starts at 7:30, and then obviously once it gets a little darker out, we'll have the fireworks. And this is one of those community events that it's all hands on deck. And Brian our council member Wagner has really provided good leadership with the Sunrise Rotary, kind of organizing it takes a lot of volunteers to pull this off, not just Rotarians, but business owners, volunteers that help provide security for the fireworks and just make sure that all of the folks enjoying the Bayfront have a good, safe experience. So certainly appreciate everyone stepping forward to provide this. Again, it's a lot of effort, and from those that are setting things up to those that are cleaning up after the event, it's just a lot of work. So we certainly appreciate that. So it's a busy week because this is probably the heaviest amount of visitors that we'll see in our community.
Yep.
So that is outstanding that we can share our wonderful community with those folks, but it also puts a heavy burden on staff to make sure that we're polished up and we're ready to to be seen and show ourselves as presentable. So it's a lot of work for staff, and we certainly value and enjoy that opportunity to show off our community. But it's a lot. So we'll hopefully the weather will cooperate, and we'll be able to have a nice celebration. So any questions for me?
Mr. Wagner.
Just a comment, supporting what Shane said, well, for one, Sunset Park is incredible. I've been through there a few times now and up and down the stairs, and it's really wonderful. And last night's vibe down here with the music, and I'm told the week before was the same thing. The performer, Kevin, said it's some people are there as the destination. They knew about it and showed. But the foot traffic and bike traffic and skateboard traffic up and down there, and people just stop and they listen for a while. And it just really makes for a nice atmosphere.
Yeah. The Arts Commission is looking at putting a piece of art in the Sunset Park, so that's going to be our first major project piece. And I guess I got to tell you, we have a new piano in the tunnel. You have? All right. And we're looking at a mural in the tunnel as well in the future, so. Okay. Next is the appointments, consideration of appointment to the Downtown Management Board, and I'm bringing forward Stephen Mullen. He owns, or he manages Craig Ryan, which is a men's clothing business on Howard. Has come before the board several times, having ideas, feels that he can add some benefit to be on the great team that he says that's there now. So I look forward to support.
I'll make a motion to approve Steve Mullen and comment and thank Craig Ryan. They stepped up 2 days ago for the next 5 years, their fireworks sponsor.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner, a second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? I go to city clerk, back for roll.
Wagner.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore.
Aye.
Walker.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Next, on the new business, the adoption of a proposed resolution approving the municipal curbside recycling service agreement with Emmett County. So. I've had contacts from at least 2 council members somewhat concerned about the contract. Not that they're not supportive of the process of continuing, but
Yeah, I'm happy
I
to
guess I'll turn it over to Ms. Demore. She's the one that has probably the larger questions. Ms. Demore.
I'm happy to speak, but it looks like we have a guest. Do we want to give her an opportunity?
Sorry, yes, Andy Tolsdorf is with us, the director of Emmett County Recycling, and just maybe before Council Member Demore brings her questions. Andy and I were going back and forth today, this has kind of been an evolving contract, if you will. So we have the contract that's in your packet has kind of been amended. I didn't want to send anything out. Obviously, we'll talk that through this evening, but one concern that was raised was we do not currently have an anti-scavenging ordinance. This was in the 2019 version. I don't know how far it goes back, but we don't have this ordinance, and I just asked Andy, would they consider that to be, could we remove this out of the contract? And she confirmed that we could remove that.
Which page is
That's
that on?
section 3.1, which is 43, page 43 of the packet.
I don't know, Lindsay, should you be, I don't know, is there a possible conflict of her sitting in?
Yes,
I think-
well, I'll let her dissolve that.
Lindsay,
Sure, I'll recuse myself when it's time for the vote.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay. Just wanted to make that clear, so,
DPW employee.
Right.
Boss or manager or anybody.
so other changes or?
There was a question on section 4.2 and 4.3 on termination of the contract. The original contract talked about if we as the municipality fail to perform versus if the county's right to terminate. So Ann and I have kind of gone back and forth on that one as well to try to make it a little bit more equitable. So that the county will, and we didn't get a chance to have the county's civil council put any language forward, but the county would be okay with the county's section. The only reason the county would terminate, the one thing that I went back with Andy on, could we match the language of the county, and realizing that their interpretation could be that if we decide to terminate, now they've already have equipment, they have manpower that have in place to service our needs, and so that could potentially be problematic if we just have the ability to cancel or terminate the contract. And so having the ability to I'm trying to find the language now. I'm stumbling a little bit.
It's
Yeah.
It's 4.2 and 4.3 on page 44. I think the difference between the old contract and this is that 4.3 didn't exist in the old contract, based on my quick review.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Where would that leave the city if the county was to terminate? So you can terminate, but we can't.
And that's what we're looking at with our civil council, is adding that the county would only terminate if the city failed to pay, or a situation like that we wouldn't terminate for no reason at all.
Okay. Should we just start from the beginning? What do you think? Are there other? Why don't you keep going, Shane, if there's other things that you guys.
That was kind of the big ones, I think, that we were, I mean, this is a contract that kind of carries forward from what we've done in the past, so it's up to council how you want to proceed.
Mr. Moore.
So for me, respectfully, and this is nobody's fault, I asked for a copy of the old contract so I could look at it. I didn't get it till today. Again, nobody's fault. I only asked for it over the weekend, and had a chance to just read part of it. And there actually are some other significant differences. So again, I love recycling. I've been recycling before anybody was picking it up at my curb. At the same time, it's our responsibility to protect the city's interest. And I will just give an example that in the prior agreement, there was an indemnification agreement that the county would hold the city harmless. For example, if something happened with one of the trucks and it injured somebody, that sort of thing. And if you look at the current one, page 44 under item 6, assurances, that's quite a significant change. So just for my part, and this is just one person speaking, it would be helpful to me if we had a little bit more opportunity, given that I think the renewal's in September, to be able to look at some of these differences to understand why they exist and if they're in the best interests of the city. Thank you.
I will say that this has been reviewed by our city attorney. Andy, can you provide your timeline for when you had mentioned you'd like to get this in front of your board, like in July, right?
Yes. Yep. So we have met with all 5 of our curbside contracts are up for renewal right now. We have met with all the other ones, and we are planning to take it to the Board of Commissioners meeting in July. I think July 18th is the date, but obviously if we haven't it out by then we can postpone that, but that is on the Board of Commissioners agenda for July 18th.
But they have a meeting in August.
Yes.
2 meetings.
Yes.
And they also, the contract is not up until September.
Correct.
So we do have time
Yes.
to look this through.
Yep.
Okay. Are there other concerns that anybody has on this contract, I guess? Do we want to talk on those now, or do we want to, what would be the best move for these? Shane, what's your feeling?
What are the options or what other things do we need to pull up to consider?
Mr. Shields,
Well, my only question coming in tonight was, are there any changes and what are they? And has it been reviewed by council? Sounds like there are changes. I don't know if they're significant or not. And, I read the insurances and how's that different in identification, and it sounds like there's some concern there. I would, where I sit right now is if our legal counsel read through it and approved it, I'm okay moving forward. That said, if we had another version that just highlighted the changes, that would be a way to go forward for next. I'll look at it at our next meeting. If necessary.
Mr. Wagner,
Couple things. I assume you suggested earlier we back up and start at the beginning. It'd be great to hear what Shane and Andy plan to present to us before we talk about edits. So I'm assuming Andy came prepared to talk tonight. So I'd love to back up and hear that part. And then as I look at the dates, we meet again on July 15th, I believe.
it would also,
That's that's 3 days before the 18th meeting.
yeah, they would also meet in August as well.
Yeah.
2 meetings
Yeah,
in
so we-
August, so.
So we could get it done in time for the 18th.
But we could also get it done in time for one of their 2 meetings in August
Yeah.
as well, so. Right, so I guess not pinning the city council and the city against the wall on this. I'm totally in favor of this, but I want to make sure the legalese piece of it is correct and moving forward. I have concerns if there's a difference between who's responsible and who can be sued, who's felt liable. And in the past, it was not the city, it was the county. I guess I would need good reasoning why that was dropped and now we are gonna possibly hold the bag for something.
Yeah, and the county now has a new civil council, and I think they just put their standard new language in there, so I'm happy to take it back to them and have a discussion with them about this language. I don't think there'll be any concerns with that.
Yeah, I think that was one area that I saw, but anybody else?
Yeah, there were a couple other ones that I had, but I'm happy to share those with Shane and he can convey them to you.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Would that work better?
Yes, yeah, that would work.
I guess council, if you want to talk now, we can, or if you wish to send them to Shane. He can work with her and the county to come up with something and then bring it back to us at the next meeting. Mr. Shields, are you still would like to see past and current one? Would that assist you at all?
No, I think your plan
Okay.
sounds good to me.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, I want to make sure everybody's got what they feel would work. So there are some things that people have questions about. I don't know, do you wish Ms. Demore to lay both and mention some of those now, or do you want to get with the city manager?
I can share them with Shane and then Shane can share them with apparently anybody who would like to see them in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, excuse me.
Good. Are you good with that?
Yeah, that
Okay.
works for me.
And you want to go over some highlights of the.
We'll go over the highlights.
All right.
Please.
Well, thank you for having me here today. So I just wanted to thank the city of Petoskey for working with Emmett County Recycling with curbside recycling since 2004. The city of Petoskey does follow some best practices in recycling, such as waste and recycling, such as offering bulky pickup twice a year, yard waste collection, multifamily recycling, and we'd like to continue that partnership into the future. I wanted to share some numbers with you about last year. So our driver stopped at 56,000 houses or 56,000 stops. So every time he stops and picks up a recycle bin, they click on a clicker. And so there was 56,000 stops of recycling that were picked up in 2023.
In Petoskey.
Yes, in the city of Petoskey. Yes, and then once it's picked up, it comes back to our facility. Over 95% of the recyclable materials that we accept supply Michigan businesses, supply the Michigan economy. Emmett County DPW employs 27 full-time staff. These staff collect, sort, and process the recyclable materials. Other programs may find recycling too expensive or too difficult. There might be challenges, but in Emmett County Recycling, we feel very strongly that all of our recycling materials are turned into a new product. We call that highest and best use, and that is our real recycling promise. There may be questions about dual stream. Why can't you just throw it all in one bin? It's a lot easier to throw it in one bin, and we asked to keep it separated because our facility is set up that way, and that really allows us to get maximum value for the materials that we sort. So that really helps to contribute to our economics of our processing facility and help keep the costs down for the cities who are nice enough to be able to provide that service for their residents. So thank you guys for continuing to provide that service. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Mr. Wagner.
Just a comment, some of you know my degree, college degree, and my career has all been in packaging. And I think when Lindsay and I met, you said that's like what 90% of what you touch is in packaging.
Yeah.
And so I've had a great opportunity to get to know Emmett County Recycling and the dual stream, single stream thing. When that happened 30 plus years ago, whatever, a good part of our country went to single stream because of frankly lazy Americans, so they could make it easy on us. They're all now looking at Emmett County and a few others in their country, and we're the envy of the country in terms of our dual stream recycling process. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Moore.
So I just have a question about the rate increases. Can you speak to like how you come up with those percentages and what they're linked to?
Yes.
Thank you.
So the way we come up with our costs for this service is we definitely want to make it cost effective for the municipalities who are paying for this for their residents. So when we are looking at our costs, we have our costs for processing. So our labor costs, our energy costs, our equipment costs, our depreciation, all of that, as well as our collection costs. So like I said, with dual stream is our material does have some value. It definitely isn't even close to covering the processing costs, but it definitely does help add to the processing costs. We, as Emmett County Recycling, we cover that cost for the municipalities, even for the drop sites. And so when we are coming up with our costs for the municipalities for curbside, we're looking at the curbside recycling cost. So that's really just the cost to drive our truck down the road. And as you know, the last handful of years, labor has increased, fuel has increased, equipment has increased. A truck used to be $200,000. Now it's $350,000. So we factor those costs into the costs, but we still do try to keep it reasonable for the cities to be able to provide that to the residents.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we have a game plan.
All right.
So, thank you, Andy, for coming.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to working with you and probably see you next month.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Do you need a motion to table or?
You do a motion to postpone it for the next meeting?
Sure. We need one. We do need a postpone.
So,
Mr. Moore,
so moved.
Mr. Shields,
Second motion.
a motion from Mr. Moore, second from Mr. Shields. Any other discussion? I go to Sarah Beck for roll.
Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Shields,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Walker,
Accused.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 4-0. Next, the adoption of a proposed resolution authorizing the contract with Hastings Air Energy Control from New Berlin, Wisconsin, the amount of $91,043 for vehicle exhaust extraction system. By the way, it's not Berlin, it's Berlin. just for your history. It's in Berlin because at wartime, they
I guess I did.
changed the pronunciation of their city instead of Berlin to Berlin. My sister lived there, that's how I know this. Go for it.
So this, you may recall, is in our capital improvement plan. It's something that we've earmarked and prioritized for the safety of our public safety officers who exercise this equipment daily. And if it's a severely cold winter day, we kind of prop the door open, which is not, we talk about efficiency and sustainability. That is not, runs counter to that. So this equipment will hook directly to our vehicle exhaust and exhaust it without having to prop any doors open and things like that for the safety of our staff. We think this is a best practice. So we are certainly looking forward to adding this technology. We did this project out. We have 100,000 in the budget for this facility and then Bay Harbor facility as well. So that we recommend going with the low bid. We did look into other installations. Director Carr called around the closest one that has recently installed this technology is Sault Ste. Marie Fire Department. But there was a Grand Ledge Fire Department and a few others in the state recently have used Hastings extraction systems and all have very positive things, all positive feedback with the technology and the installation.
Do I have a possible motion? Ms. Walker?
Next question.
Yes.
Shane, so does this mean that equal 2 units, the same price, the same installation in the 2 fire stations?
Yeah, the total covers both stations. Yep. So it takes in, I think there's 4 bays here that it takes in. And then there's 2 bays at the other station. So it takes in all those bays with this technology.
And then my second question, Mayor, if I may.
Please.
So is that, how do you allot those accordingly to the different respective fire stations when you're coming up with a list of expenditures and revenue every year in the budget for both respective fire stations, or is it under one office and one budget?
It's under one budget, and then depending on the needs, we allocate it, whether it's Bay Harbor or here, but Bay Harbor is a fairly new station, so the needs there are much less than what we have currently here next to us. So you may remember some of the other priorities that were in that station that we ended up pulling out just based on we can't always do what we'd like, even at home. We can't always do all the projects that we'd love to do at home. We have to prioritize our income and how much is coming in. So we did push off a few projects at public safety here that will likely kind of resurface again as we go through the capital budgeting process. And again, we'll make those priority calls just based on, what our revenues look like.
Let me ask another follow-up question.
Please.
Sorry.
So just thinking out loud, when you're allocating costs, especially for a program like public safety, which usually takes the majority of the general fund budget in any given year between Parks and Rec and public safety, do you allot it to like that specific location expenses and then kind of justify the revenue from the tax base for Bay Harbor, like allotting it to that? Or is it all pooled together and kind of general funds and tax dollars are kind of mixy matchy, and then those respective buildings are allotted their expenses?
Yeah, it's all
Thanks.
kind of pooled together based on this is what the revenue is. And because public safety and parks in large part are general fund entities, well, they are general fund entities, but they pull out of general fund for probably 95%. So we have to make sure that versus like an enterprise fund like water, wastewater, electric, those are self-supporting funds, as you all know. So there's more opportunity to do some bigger projects in those funds because there are business funds, they're self-supporting based on rates, whereas we know as staff, we're not going to be able to raise the millage to pay for certain things that maybe we would like to do. So we have to work within the confines of the revenue that we have. So in the case of public safety, we kind of know what the ballpark is for where we need to be, and it's just a matter of prioritizing which station needs the most effort to kind of from a capital standpoint. So.
But it's not split
It's
between
not split.
revenues of, Bay Harbor, we collected this much revenue, so
Right.
therefore we're gonna spend that much at the West Fire Station. It's all
Right.
commingled together.
Yep.
That makes sense. Thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Shields,
Make a motion to approve the contract with Hastings Air Energy Control.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
I have a motion from Mr. Shields, second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Demore. Aye. Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0 to go with the air extractors. I think that's a great move. So next is a discussion on draft policy, purchasing policy, and I'll turn it over to, again, our city manager, Shane Horn.
I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know if that was firework or car backfiring. So in front of you, I kind of put some, and I always like to walk a very fine line here because I know what my role is. And so I don't want there to be any perception that I'm kind of getting into the policy lane. But I think at the same time, it helps kind of, hopefully it helps guide discussion on where city council wants to go from a policy standpoint. So I put some thoughts together and really crafted based on Council Member Demore's sample policy that she provided and kind of built off that a little bit with some procedures specific maybe to us that are kind of open for further discussion. Obviously, this is just on for discussion tonight. And we'll kind of see how this continues to evolve going forward, but I'm open and available for any sort of feedback or questions as we continue to formulate this policy.
It looks like people have questions, so
Yes.
I'll start with who would like to go first? Mr. Shields.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about something, let's give page. And let's give something more than just the page, so we can identify where we're at, so everybody can focus, so. Mr. Shields.
All right. Manager Horn, just to start, I appreciate the template, something to go off of, but as I agree, your intent for a starting place is welcomed. And also, we discussed briefly last time, this has very relevant impact to your department heads and how they do their business. So having those numbers is a great starting point, was helpful. So I want to say off the bat, I think this looks good, and I don't have any critiques of the current one, except for maybe a couple of things that were in the original version that Councilwoman Demore, I think, submitted that are missing from this one. So
Okay.
I don't have a page number for that. But I can reference, it's kind of read the last one. So there's two. There's one that's called local purchasing. It was a paragraph that I thought was really good. I had started it last time, is one I liked. And the one right below that was cooperative purchasing. And that one I was quickly read. The city may join in cooperative purchasing agreements with other government units. The city may accept extended government pricing with appropriate documentation if it is determined to be cost effective and in the city's best interest. And I like that included not only for the opportunity to cooperate and collaborate with other government units, but also with other institutions. You could use the word anchor institutions in community. What if there's opportunity to collaborate with the college or the hospital or some other industry in purchasing arrangements. I think identifying that in this purchasing policy would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Who's next? Ms. Demore.
Well, I would just follow up on that, that it exists under exceptions as D. It's written a little differently, but I agree with you. I prefer it in not under exceptions. And the language that existed on the one that was originally presented.
Okay. You good with that, Shane? You cover what they're talking?
Yeah, but I almost thought that that needs to be a standalone policy, like a local preference policy should that be standalone? But obviously, we're talking about purchasing, so maybe it would be commingled in it, but that could become a different policy in and of itself. But we can certainly put that back in there. It's fine. I'm certainly a fan of local purchasing policies. I think we're all, especially in our region where it sometimes feels like we're a little more secluded. Whereas if we can work together, and the county's kind of gone through a process of bidding a project out and we're interested in it. There's certainly value there in piggybacking off of each other from my standpoint. So, and then if we can give a business that's local, the preference, within a certain percent of that could be would be dictated by city council. Certainly that is something that I would support as well.
Okay. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I support local purchasing being in there too. I've got a number of markups here, but overall, the problem I have with this is the changes in these amounts under procurement procedures. Because under the old policy, I mean, I think that was one thing that worked well, the limits. And we really didn't have any issues around that I'm aware of since I've sat at this table. And that was $5,000 or more required written quotes, 10,000 or more required city council approval, 20,000 or more required sealed bids. These suggestions alter that significantly. And this is no statement towards staff, but ultimately we're the elected officials that are responsible to constituents for spending money. And for me, these limits are too high.
What are you suggesting?
I think the numbers we have now are good.
Remember, let me ask the city manager
Sure.
a question for that then. Shane, could you give us a reason for the increase?
The policy that we're referring to is from 1994. So I think a lot has changed since then, so it's difficult to get projects off the dime if we're constantly going back to numbers that maybe aren't reflective of today's economy. I think there's value, and I think trying to get things going, and if we're constantly having to get approvals at certain thresholds, I think that's more barriers than anything to continue to move projects forward. So I did do some research to see what other communities are doing. And I think a lot of communities are looking at increasing the authority that's provided to the city manager and to staff, so we can obviously continue to get things accomplished in the speed that I think everyone would like. But certainly this is just my again, I'm not trying to push policy. I think we needed some starting points, and again, this is discussion, so I appreciate the input, and we'll continue to craft it to make this a policy that all of you or at least a majority of you will support.
Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I would only respectfully follow up to those comments to say that, again, in the time that I've been sitting here, I've never once heard any concerns that, things were slowed down or anything like that because of the monetary amounts. Certainly, I was leading the charge here to upgrade the policy from 1994. But I just haven't seen any issues around those amounts. And frankly, I think it's protective of staff to have those numbers the way they are, so that there's the backup of the eyes at this table. I think it's in your best interest as well, in their best interest as well.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that this purchasing policy is like a really good second version, and I think we're getting closer. I could say that I have recognized one kind of concern, and that's when government entities constantly have to go out to bid for services. The private sector's like not interested in bidding because we make them go through the motions of bidding. And they have the choice to work with the private sector and get a lot of money. And when they look at the public sector, it seems like government moves at the pace of molasses. And for the private sector, they're basically not interested. So they'll throw out a bid and it isn't reflective of the true value. And we're trying to get to this point as a government entity trying to implement projects. I can think of several with Parks and Rec that had to go back to the drawing board again because they didn't get enough quotes, or the quotes weren't really reflective of reality. So I don't know how you change that dynamic as a government entity in the bidding process, but I have seen several demonstrable projects that the bidding really didn't go as hoped by the department head because of how government is treated in terms of bidding.
But how does that enter in? I don't see the correlation between what you've just said and the stopping of projects.
Well, there's been several examples when we've gone out to bid and we've gotten one quote
Yeah,
or two,
yeah,
and they haven't been comparable.
right.
And so I think it has something to do with,
How would that change by changing these amounts? I see these amounts as something of daily operation versus bidding, process bidding, which, as we all know, at times you have to go out a second time for bids.
Right.
You also may have to go back and to the drawing board and look at it. We've also had bids that have come in $200,000 over
Mhm.
what we anticipated. I don't see that correlation to bidding of jobs to this piece.
well, I think it has to do with a policy that's 30 years old, possibly, and that coming into the future and understanding how the bidding process on some of these very big jobs, particularly with Parks and Recreation, because you could think like DPW as an enterprise fund, which I also really appreciate in this contract.
All of those bids are going to be far exceed anything that's here on this paper. So they're really not in the realm of what we're talking about right now.
Oh, sure, it's
Of
policy.
10, 20, 30, 40,000. Those projects that come into Parks and Rec are in the $100,000, $200 million. So this is really not, this is not the same comparison of what we're
I'm
talking about.
talking about the very specific context of things that have come before this governing body is what I'm talking about, because there is something that she had mentioned that she hadn't really seen the results of that. And I'm just reiterating that it has happened several times, and public sector is hard pressed for getting reflective bids from the private sector on a regular basis. So I don't know where that falls in terms of how we create policy and language, and we're updating something from 30 years ago. Then the second thing I just wanted to say was I really appreciated that the activities of the City of Petoskey Enterprise Fund as a self-sustaining organization are recognized budgetarily, because that doesn't happen at the county, and it's really frustrating. So thank you so much.
Mr. Shields.
Mayor John, I had a question about the purchases more than 25,000 and services greater than 40,000. And if you have any more details of what those numbers how you came up with those numbers and why the difference is it, as Ms. Walker said, was kind of talking about making it easier to do services that are hard to bid out at between the $25,000 and $40,000 range. Is that's some of the thinking behind this?
Yeah, I think the former policy talked about 20,000 coming to city council, so this bumps it up a little bit more from a purchase standpoint and then services, what I was thinking there is these are, you know, in the past, professional services, we were not necessarily bringing back here to city council. We were not for professional services doing that. This would bring services back if they reached a threshold greater than 40,000, which is what I thought I heard. Council want to see more of even the recurring professional service contracts come back to city council on a regular basis, even though many communities don't necessarily bid out professional services. So this kind of what I thought was a compromise that over that threshold, you would still see some of those contracts.
Ms. Demore.
So I'll do my best to try to explain my concern in this context of services. What happens is it's very difficult to see the amount paid to a particular service provider when they come to us only in a cumulative amount of a project in the budget, or they come to us in separate payouts for a particular period of time. So it's actually difficult to understand how much is being paid to a single professional provider on a given project, which may exceed these amounts, but we can't see that. And so bidding it, to my mind, is very, very important, because otherwise, cumulatively, we are paying sums to certain entities that we wouldn't recognize because it's in a budget line in the project. And that's an element that I think is really important. And I've kind of been looking at this to understand it better, because even though you all say I've been here for a while, I haven't been here as long as anybody else. So that's my concern in that lane for fairness.
Anyone else? Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, I review over the weekend. I like the major upgrade from 1994. That was my first thought. And then my assumption going in, I thought, challenging Shane and staff on, does this make sense? Is it burdensome in any way? Do the increase in dollars, are they reflective of the economy over the last 30 years? And it sounds like they are. So it's a long time. So I'm comfortable with what I read. That's the work for everybody.
Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Moore, if I may, does that 40,000 for professional services, before it was the $10,000 level?
Well, before at least
$20,000.
before at least professional services were completely exempted.
Right.
So now they're included with this limit that I respectfully disagree with.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, now that they're included, professional service are included, and I think I agree with you on the importance of that because they're hard to see.
Yeah.
And that's a very valid point. But is 40,000, that is not acceptable, or to you? That's what I'm trying to weigh out now is that amount.
Ms. Demore.
Well, I'm just interested to learn more about quote unquote industry standards.
Okay.
I did some outreach myself. I don't have responses. Maybe Shane has some stuff on that he could share with us. But once again, I go back to, while we definitely needed to update the policy, I have not seen the problems with those guidelines. I think you, Lindsay, are addressing a different problem, which I certainly agree with, that sometimes we put out bids and, we can't get anybody to bid. But these particular levels I've not seen a problem with, or I haven't heard about that anybody came to us and said, wow, this is problematic, that every time, we do something $5,000 or more, we have to get a written bid. I've not heard that. Or, gosh, this level at 10,000 for city council approval is too burdensome. So I'm trying to understand why we have to up these numbers, because I haven't seen them to be an issue. And again, we're the fiduciaries of community funds, staff is as well, but ultimately as elected officials, we're the buck stops here.
Thank you.
I would just say from a day-to-day management, it is cumbersome, it is problematic, but we will work with whatever policy council approves, certainly. If you want to go back to the previous purchasing limits and then exclude professional services out of that, and I know that's not what you want to do, but if you want to bring us to a screeching halt, I guess we can continue to do that. The nice thing about us being able to shift on the fly and get things done, whether it's trimming the view sheds, we get calls 3 times a week. And so engaging a tree contractor to assist us with things, and that's just one example. If we have to bid out everything professional service wise, it's going to slow things down, just to be fairly blunt. So if that's what you still want to do, that's completely fine. We'll do it. But the nice thing we've been able to do here, I think, is really engage with contractors that answer the phone when we call, pick up the phone. They're here when we need them during emergency situations. If we're constantly shifting from one vendor to the next and there's no loyalty, that might not happen. So we've enjoyed good opportunities to engage with contractors and vendors because we've had long-term relationships with them, and we certainly still hold them accountable, looking at what they're charging and making sure they're responsible that way as well. But
anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Wagner.
My only comment, that's the other thing I thought about is I was hearing from a couple of you, specific examples help. Well, I'm just hearing service providers. I don't necessarily know what that means. I think about me being a service provider in my company and trying to relate to it. So something like that, where I've seen the response on the view shed is very helpful.
That was in the budget though, was it? Or where does that money come from if it's not in our approved budget?
so we do have money in the budget for that. And then we typically do bid that work out. So we have a tree contractor that when we need to call them for removals or trimming, we have a number that they provide us based on an hourly rate or a certain rate for a removal based on the size of the tree. So we have that, in hand, ready to go, and we make those calls as needed. But there is funds in the budget for that. Certainly, the amount of calls that I get on that is certainly something we're going to have to address going forward, because it's not enough. We all know that things continue to grow. Even each of you were here in, I think, 2019 when they did the highway work and did a lot of trimming and clearing during that. But a lot of those trees have just a lot of those shrubs and things have continue to grow. So everybody values their views, and when they look out their window, they want to see the beautiful views that we all enjoy. So there's a balance there. We all value and we love trees, and certainly they play a huge role in providing good quality of life as well. So there's a balance there.
Mr. Moore.
I had a question too. There was that provision about gratuities, personal benefits, kickbacks. Did you just remove that because of we already had the
Yeah, that's in our
ethics
ethics policy already. I didn't think we needed to duplicate that.
Anyone else wish to speak? Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one other, just kind of piggybacking on the local purchasing, cooperative purchasing. Also, as part of a Michigan My Green Communities, part of the language on how you get more points is you have a green purchasing policy. So maybe there could be some kind of wording around green purchasing policies, the use of recycled content and highlighting those opportunities if it's equally as cost effective, and maybe some kind of green purchasing policy language. And that could further our Michigan Green Community status, so we could get platinum next year. Thanks.
Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to summarize here, I don't think that we are as a whole throwing out these numbers. I mean, there's some disagreement on them. I'm realizing as we're discussion here that it's, understanding what is the services, what that means is Mr. Wagner said, maybe that's, I kind of lack a good grasp of what we're talking about when we're talking about the services. And, you know, I can think of a couple examples of where I think oversight would be important. I know that there's been a history of the forest management of over 700 acres and that was like service. Was there much oversight from the council body from that? I don't know. So that's an example. Well, I think oversight would be good, but I also hear Manager Horn's concerns of unnecessarily slowing the efficient staff down. So and maybe if there is some memo of kind of describing what the services are that could help us in the next discussion of this, that's an idea to throw out.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. One community's policy that I copied, and when they list professional service that being excluded from bidding, they list professional services as architectural, engineering, accounting, appraising, auditing, risk management, urban planning, legal, and IT services as professional services. Just to kind of give you an idea of what one community's thought process is. Those are services that typically a local government would engage in. And then obviously, you know, the other side of that is actually goods. Whether that's, you know, buying a piece of equipment or what have you.
Good with this for this end of discussion? Ms. Walker?
I just have one more question. Would this policy apply to all departments under the auspice of the city of Petoskey, including the downtown management board?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. All set? Okay. Anything else? You good?
I really don't know what my direction is, to be blunt about it, I guess. I don't.
Sure either.
But maybe that's, if you want to get your feedback back to me, that's fine, but I don't really feel like I understand where. Are we just using the rates from the 30-year-old document and putting that into this policy? I just don't know if there's any consensus on a direction.
For my part, I just need more time to work on this. Like I say, I have outreach to try to get some sense of what industry standards are. And I have some language issues, which I'm happy to submit to you, Shane, the city manager, for sharing with others, if that's helpful.
Mr. Shields?
Yeah, my understanding is working from this draft. And there is some disagreement in numbers, but I think I see some heads now that we're working from this draft, Manager Horn. And then we can get comments back to you and continue to discuss those specific numbers and comments at the next reading.
Sounds good. Mr. Wagner?
On that, I don't know if it's doable to your point, Dina, about research. But I think back to our terms of service being extended. They were extended based on research of other municipalities, and so was our compensation by the compensation committee. And if there's anything that could support the dollar levels in the policy, that would be very helpful.
Should get that, Shane. Some comparisons. All right, you good with this, son, moving forward? All right. I think we'll revisit this at the next meeting then, okay? Was just for discussion. Next, last is city council comments, and I'll start with Ms. Walker, Ward 4.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking forward to our 4th of July events here in Bay Harbor and Petoskey. I spend the majority of my day on the 4th of July in Harbor Springs. Doing recycling, but I also am so grateful for the work of both Rotary and Kiwanis to have a really easy way to sign up to volunteer for 4th of July activities, as well as the cleanup on Friday morning. So Shane, I'll see you at the waterfront at 9 a.m. on Friday.
Yes.
Thank you, and I've signed up for cleanup with you too, so I look forward to that. So no other council members are allowed to. We can't be together. Before the July, by the way, Petoskey FOURTH.com. We're still looking for volunteers in a couple of areas up at the side of the parade in particular, and then some security. Around the fireworks, which in the last shift before the fireworks is probably the best view there is. So a lot of the volunteers are in groups of like 4 or 6 or something. And then I've been super encouraged to walk, mostly walking, but driving also by Michigan Maple Block and the lofts at Lumber Square. The demolition is underway, and the digging in the ground is underway. So it's been a long journey. And to actually see headway there is super, super encouraging. And then the last thing, I don't know who was running Bayview and back in 2018 or 19, I met them, and their board was very encouraging of letting people know everywhere that we're all welcome in Bayview. We're all encouraged to use their facilities, their trails, to come to their shows and so on. And we've been taking advantage. My neighbors have. I'm sure that it used to be in Petoskey. That was a no years ago. Like that's those guys. But we've had a great, some really great experiences, including this weekend. So I want to make sure and spread the word that Bayview is for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
For shortcutting your car, though.
Except for that, yeah, good point. Mr. Fields, Ward 2.
Thank you, Mayor. Reflecting back on the city and work conventions, and one comment that was made about the deer, it made me realize that there was broader support for taking action to reduce the deer herds in the city of Petoskey than I maybe had thought, and it was broader than just Ward 2. So in light of the budgeting coming up, I'm asking that we have a serious discussion on a call as an action, future action for 2025 or later. Whereas the numbers are increasing exponentially and are not only a nuisance, but are causing health hazards with ticks. My son was picked up one walking around the neighborhood just today. Anecdotal data, but I hear it from Ward 2 members a lot. And there's also car deer safety issues and close calls.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is that, as in economic troubles, I've had residents in Ward 2 that complain about the real impact of moving money to the deer in their landscaping. Not only that, but the ethical side of deer call in a deer population that is increasing. Deer are, this is counterintuitive, but they're going to be suffering through starvation, disease, and car collisions. And actually a call is, in my opinion, and as the presenters that presented from the DNR and Michigan State Extension a year ago, that there is a humane action to take to a rising deer population. So I hope we'll seriously discuss this as a potential budget line item, or if it's too soon for that, at least we can start having these public discussions on it, so the community can have opportunities to comment because it is a controversial topic and let's not shy away from that. So thank you.
Mr. Moore, Ward 1.
Just a couple things. One, since the Waters are still with us, just to be clear, the plan is for them to connect along with the garden club with Kendall to move forward.
City manager.
City
And
manager and Kendall, okay. And just as an aside, it was kind of interesting that this week in the paper, you know, they do this historical like recollections. It was actually in the paper this week that for July 4th, a long time ago, when Mayor Waters was mayor, the highly popular clown dunk would be in action with the chief targets being Police Chief Ernie Kraus, Mayor, and some of us remember him, Mayor Barbara Walters, and Councilman Tony Scallion. I think maybe you're going to be in that seat coming up sometime soon.
Don't tell me.
And then second, just to talk about crosswalks and the walking path downtown. I personally almost got hit twice by vehicles in the last couple of weeks, right downtown. And today, actually walking here, I almost did as well. I just don't think we've got lovely signs kind of in some places, but they're up where people are not looking when they're driving. And that these walks, I don't know what we can do about this to have them more, you know, adequately marked with something. It's not my lane. I don't know what that would be. But it's, yeah, no pun intended. I don't know. No pun intended, but it is a real concern and something I've been observing. So I would hand that off to the city manager and the chief maybe to take a look at it for us. So thank you.
I had a conversation with Shane the other day, and we've had a couple of conversations. There are probably 3 issues that need to be looked at. One is crosswalks downtown. Another one is the speed of traffic. We only have one sign down here, 15 miles an hour by the depot. Driving through there, Shane and I were down by the piano, and I think the traffic was going more than 15 miles an hour, don't you? So we witnessed it. I think we need to address that. And the other thing is, I think we need to address the speed of the contraptions that people are riding. Especially on the trail up the Bear River. I see that as it's dangerous, especially when we've cemented that so that elderly people in wheelchairs, people with strollers, it's more than just a backpack or a hiking trail. It's for the whole community. So I think it's important for us to take a look at. I've talked to Shane. I don't know, Shane, do you want to put that on the agenda for a discussion, or do you want to get with Rocky and maybe see what we could do?
Yeah, I think it's a broader discussion, both with public safety and as we get downtown, talking to DMB and getting them engaged in the discussion as well. Certainly, I value the historical beauty that we have downtown. But obviously we want to make sure people are crossing safely as well. So there's got to be a balance there, and we're certainly. I agree. If you looking up, the sign looks like it blends in. And so typically you see this bright, I don't even know if it's lime or yellow, bright neon. That's not necessarily going to look nice next to a historical building, but at the same time, does it get your attention and you're able to, oh, this is a crosswalk here. I need to slow down and be aware of my surroundings. So certainly there's something that we need to discuss further, both, internally and with DMB as well, to see how we can improve that, especially downtown.
How about if a month or 2 from now, you come back with us with a couple ideas that you feel would address it? We aren't going to be able to change it today or this month, but send it to you. And you take a look and see what you guys can come up with.
Yeah, I don't know how you, well, other than physically looking, but we're so distracted from a driver standpoint. We have so much going on behind the wheel that without officers seeing somebody on their phone or texting,
right?
Certainly we can now address that, but
I don't think that's the answer.
No, I know, but
Because somehow you're driving down Mitchell and you come by the Carnegie Building. There's a crosswalk right there that I think the other ones kind of denote a crosswalk because you've got the islands. But that first crosswalk right there, I've seen people dodging cars and cars not stopping. Maybe it's a better notification that this is a actual crosswalk there. But why don't you take a look?
Can I just add the walking path too along Arlington? Because that's another one where you can get taken out very easily by wheeled devices.
Yeah, I think we need to address that somehow. And Shane, maybe you can talk to Rocky and see what we can do.
yeah, we talked about using our cadets to be able to do that. But to take an officer off the street is
My
challenging.
concern is that the cadets can't issue a ticket.
Off the street and on the sidewalk.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah, you'll talk about, this is the Harbor Hall is celebrating 50 years. Established in 1974. They have a luncheon opening. He said, what can we do to reach out to the community? And I said, have a picnic where your clients, your staff get together and meet with the public, especially in that neighborhood group. So here is something for July 17th, 11 till 2. And it gives you the opportunity. Isn't there enough?
Thank you.
there? There's plenty. I give everybody one. So there's that's your opportunity to, I think it'd be great for us to attend. Learn something new. I think they'll give tours of